Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Culver City High School. My name is Carlos Valverde. I'm Director of Activities and the Democracy School Coordinator for Culver City High School. Just to give you a little bit of background about what a Democracy School is, in 2012, a team of teachers, site administrators, and parents came together and participated in a 3-year institute with the Los Angeles County Office of Education through a training program that focused on 3 critical pedagogical practices: inquiry and investigation, service, and civility. Upon completion of the program and the accreditation process in 2015, Culver City High School earned the distinction of being one of the first of 10 California democracy schools in the state of California. The program consists of, the program pretty much, what we do here is we train our teachers and we really try to get students and embedded it in at least the practices embedded into all subject areas of the curriculum. But essentially what we want students to do is to participate in civil and productive dialogue and understanding about current local, national, and international issues, understand and respect the electoral process, also registering to vote and being informed, engaged citizens, investigate and address community issues, and also thinking about ways of problem solving and how to be creative and innovative in dealing with many of the issues that our society deals with. Tonight's event is a collaboration between the high school, Culver City High School Student Council, the student club called Girls Build LA, and I really recommend that you look that up if you're interested in finding out more about that. Also the social studies department here at the school, and Kids Scoop Media. With that, I just would like to also just thank all of the panelists for being here. We're currently waiting for Representative Bass, who's on her way, but we just want to welcome everyone here: Assembly Member Sydney Kamlager, City Council Member Megan Sally Wells, CCUSD Board Members Kelly Kent, Kathy Paspales, Summer McBride, Ann Allaire, our CCUSD Superintendent, Leslie Lockhart, and School Board Candidate, Tashawn McKeithen. So welcome everybody and thank you for being here. Tonight's event is going to be facilitated by our high school senior Thistle Businger, who's over there on the other side. And right after Michelle speaks, I'm going to have Thistle just to say a little something about herself and give you guys a little bit of background. Okay, so Michelle, come on.
Thank you so much for coming. It means a lot because this truly is a labor of love for me. There's nothing like, God, hearing what young people have to say. And so it's always a great honor, and I'm so happy that Culver City was the first city that really kind of believed in my idea in 2010 when I proposed, hey, what do you think of doing this, kind of forum for the school board? And all the questions will be coming from elementary, middle school, and high school. And all the candidates that year said yes, and from then on, it's been very successful. So thank you so much, Culver City. I also want to thank Carlos Valverde and Lucas Plotnick and Adrian Madrid for collaborating with me on this event, which is unique because we are combining government and school board and school district all on one stage. So it's pretty exciting. And we could not do this without the help of our sponsors, our amazing sponsors, who you see on this board. Our media sponsor for this event is the Culver City Catalyst, so thank you. We also have the Culver Studios, the Culver Hotel, Albert Vera, who's just so giving. Thank you so much to Albert and the Sorrento Market. Heather and Art Coombs Perez Realtors, Co-Opportunity, Procolo, Culver City Art Walk, Dr. Craig Abrams, La Roca Pizzeria, and Michael Morabito for your help. And I just want to say that aside from, we started covering politics in 2010. We started covering the Obama White House then, and we've continued on to the Trump White House. And we believe that it's so important to have youth representation alongside mainstream media. when we're there. So we try to do our best standing alongside CNN and Fox. And we've also been covering the congressional races in New York for District 14 and District 25. So that's been awesome. And aside from politics, we've broken into food reviews and film premieres, so the young folks get to interview. We just interviewed Jack Black and Kate Blanchett, and we have a lot more coming up. I also wanted to say that it's incredible to be a part of a city with so much female representation on so many levels. And we're so lucky to have these folks because they truly care and they actually participate in our community. They are around, they are accessible, they know who you are, and that is massive to any city. And they're here tonight because your voice matters. And so I want to thank them and give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. You know, we're on the eve of a vote that undoubtedly will be heartbreaking to many, celebratory to some, and historical to everyone. So it's important that whatever happens, we keep moving forward, we keep organizing, and we never miss the opportunity to vote. And that's why I'm wearing my shirt, because actually, if you put your phone up to here, you scan it, and you can register via this T-shirt. And I bought this from the Parkland kids when they were in New York, and they've been selling this on their road tour, on their trip. So just, you know, please register to vote. I believe there's a table outside. If you're not registered, please do so. And on that note, we're going to start. I'm going to join Thistle, and on with the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle Mayans. Thank you, Dr. Valverde. Welcome to the first ever Culver City Community Forum in the new Robert Frost. My name's Thistle Businger. I'm a senior at Culver City High School. I'd like to thank the panel members for coming and speaking to us today. I know they were already introduced, but if you would like to go down the line and introduce yourselves and say your role and say something about yourself, then that would be wonderful.
Hi, my name is Anne Allaire, and I'm the current president of the Board of Education for CCUSD, and I'm just really happy to be here, and I'm 2 for 2 at the second event ever here at the Robert Frost Auditorium.
Hi, I'm Megan Sally Wells. I am the Vice Mayor of Culver City and the 5th woman to be elected to the Culver City Council in our 100-year history.
Hello, I am Sydney Kamlager. I am your state assemblywoman representing the 54th Assembly District, and I am honored to be able to represent all of Culver City. And I am the proud stepmom of Austin, who's sitting in the audience raising his hand, and he's 11.
And I'm Kathy Paspalis. I'm on the Culver City School Board since 2009, which makes me, I think, the most senior member, elected member here. Mm-hmm. And I'm done on November 30th. Not that I am counting. And Tashawn is going to take my seat.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tashawn McKeithen. I'm a proud Culver City resident, and I am running unopposed for the school board, taking Kathy's seat.
Hi, I'm Summer McBride. I'm on the Culver City School Board. I took over for Sue Robbins, so I've filled what was the remainder of a 4-year term, and I'm running uncontested as well, so I will be in this role for another 4 years, and I'm really excited about it. I have 5 children in the district, and they're somewhere in this audience. Yeah, oh, they're my high schooler, 2 middle schoolers, a 4th grader, and a preschooler. So Culver, lots of Culver pride in my house.
Hi, I'm Dr. Kelly Kent. I am Vice President on the Culver City Board of Education, and I'm completing my 3rd year, and I have 2 more years before I rerun in 2020. My 11-year-old is also in the audience, waving. Thank you, Audrey. And I bring that up because part of what's great about tonight is that We're here to inspire girls and women to hopefully get involved in local politics and elected office, and also to represent that we've got some really great partnerships where we are really connected with our state representatives, and that's why they're here with us tonight, because we're all on the same team.
Good evening. My name is Leslie Lockhart. I'm the superintendent of this excellent school district, Culver City Unified School District. I'm proud to be the first African-American woman to be superintendent for CCUSD. As awesome as that is, I am very proud to be mom to a Centaur senior, Sean. That's my son. And a little fourth grade dolphin, London. And I have a daughter who just graduated college, too.
Thank you so much. I'd like to start with some audience participation. So just applaud if this question applies to you. So first of all, who here is registered to vote? Awesome. Who here is planning to register to vote? All right. Who here is a student or a youth in the community? And how many of you live, work, or go to school in Culver City? Woo. This is an awesome city. All right. So I'd just like to start by addressing the Brown Act. So I would like if someone could explain the Brown Act to us and how that applies to this situation. Does anyone have an answer to that?
Sure, I've been selected to speak on this. It's going to be the most riveting part of the night, so hold on to your seats. So the Brown Act is a state law in California that is intended to protect our democracy to some degree and prevent a majority of elected officials on any one body from making decisions that affect the public outside of the public arena. And so they don't want us making decisions with a majority of the school board, for instance, at a bar or in somebody's living room. They want us doing it in front of the public, right, in a noticed fashion where the public can plan to attend and observe and participate if they'd like to. So one thing that does affect regarding tonight is that there are 4 sitting school board members sitting up here on this stage right now for Culver City Unified. So we may on occasion say things like, I'm speaking on behalf of myself as an individual, and not on behalf of the body of the Board of Education, just to be delicate and respectful of that process, which is an important process. And we will try to be as honest as possible, but there may be moments where we can be a little less forthcoming than you might want, and just know that that's what's going on behind that.
Thank you so much.
I just want to add on to that, because we are in public, right? So you're like, well, wait, what's the big deal? The big deal is that the Brown Act also requires notice, right? A proper notice, and that's not something that we did with this forum because it's not our forum, okay? So that adds into it. So it's not just being in public, it's a little bit more than that.
Alrighty, thank you so much. I'd like to turn it over to the audience. We've prepared a few questions from youth in the community. So our first question comes from Sydney, who's 13. Is Sydney here? All right. Go ahead and go to the mic and ask your question.
Hello. So this question is for all of you guys. So if any rock band or Broadway musical could come to the Frost, who would be most likely to come?
Who do we want to have, or who you think would actually show up?
Who do you guys want to have?
Okay, so just off the top of my head, Interpol, because they're one of my favorite bands, and also Chris Stapleton, because I love country music.
I'll have to go with the first album I ever bought when I was a kid, and that's Blondie.
I have a long list because I'm so old, but it would be great if Sting could come, if Gary Clark Jr. could come, if Alice Smith could come, if we could have Hamilton or Rent here.
You're not as old as I am. I would love to see you too. I would love to see Joan Armatrading, who most of you probably don't know. And I would love to see Wynton Marsalis. Yeah.
He was at Ciclavia on Sunday.
Cool.
Seriously.
So I'm a huge musical fan, so I have to echo Hamilton, Rent, Wicked, Annie, any musical, just put it on the stage. I'd be very excited.
I would also love Hamilton because I never won any of those tickets from that app that I was. So I would love to just have them here, and also Bruno Mars would be pretty cool.
That's right, Bruno Mars is Puerto Rican, so are my children. I would bring, speaking of children, I would bring Bruce Springsteen because my son is named after him. I'm a big fan. I'm from the East Coast. Jersey in the house.
I think I said this Saturday night too. I really, since I cannot afford tickets to this, I'd like to see Beyonce and Jay-Z just one time, just once, just once. You know, and that would be great. Of course, any musical, I would love to see Wicked. Oh, that would be great. And Hamilton, because I didn't get tickets to that either on the app. So,
Well,
Thank you so
much.
Thank you. Me personally, I would like to see David Bowie, but fortunately that can't happen. Sorry to be sad about that. But I understand, so that was a nice little icebreaker. I understand we have some more questions that are more political and that we would like to discuss today. So, Sydney, do you have another question regarding the Kavanaugh hearing?
I do.
Thank you.
With regards to the Kavanaugh nomination and prepares confirmation, or perhaps confirmation, do phone calls to our senators and representatives really matter whether we are for or against them? But in general, how do we communicate effectively with our political representatives?
Question. Well, do you want to go?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'd call, fax, email, write. Show up at their offices, absolutely makes a difference.
Fax is a
two
special
women-
machine that you actually, sorry.
You can
I was
e-fax, there's a whole app for doing it for free. You're going to be in trouble later. It makes a difference. Those two women that approached Senator Flake at the elevator at least delayed this another week.
It's really important. Yes, you have to fax. Yes, you have to email. Yes, you have to call. You know, we don't really hear from lots of folks. When I'm in Sacramento, most of the people that I hear from are the lobbyists that are up there. So it's really important when I actually hear from constituents that live in my district. If you are actually going to take the time and instead of getting on your phone and playing a game or going out to skateboard or getting something to drink, if you're taking 2 minutes to call me or to send an email, that means a lot. So you have to do that because it reminds your representatives that you are in the world, you are conscious, and you are thinking about things. And also, I hate this when it happens, but I get why it happens. If you see them on the street, go up and say hello. I can only imagine that this weekend, I have to hope that people went to the senators while they were going to church, while they were going about their daily lives, to let them know that this is important to me, and I need to let you know that it should be important to you. That is exactly what those women did to the senator in the elevator, and it absolutely makes a difference. Sometimes people are banking on your silence, so prove us wrong by not being silent.
Thank you so much.
Can I add to that, Crystal? Before we move on, I just want to add that I appreciate that the women in the elevator were brought up because they're part of what's called an inside-outside strategy, where you have people who are working within the system, but also people who are showing up on the street and demonstrating. And most major changes that have been effective have been a combination of both things. So it's important to get people elected into office that are going to respond to the voices that are really the most pressing and urgent of the time, but also, especially when things are as really critical as they are right now, I'm trying to find ways to get out onto the street as much as possible so that the folks making the decisions know how angry we are.
Yeah, this is, I mean, what was happening in DC, what's been happening in DC and in a lot of our cities is civil disobedience. And the power of civil disobedience, where people stand up and say that, you know, what's going on is not okay with us. And when you participate in civil disobedience, you will change the world. It takes years, sometimes decades, But that's the kind of action it takes. Ana Maria Archila, I actually know her. She's one of the women who happened to be doing civil disobedience and who spoke to Senator Jeff Flake in the elevator. In her day-to-day career, she is the co-director of an organization called the Center for Popular Democracy. And so every day, she works with community members to uplift communities, uplift women, uplift people of color, uplift workers. The Fight for 15 is one of the Center for Popular Democracy's big projects. And what's extraordinary is it's these conversations that we have with each other, that we have on social media, and that we have with our elected officials that can absolutely change the world. The other thing that changes everything is voting. And I know that it's hard to think that your voice always counts, and it's hard to think that that one little vote makes that big difference. But as somebody who lost her first election by 32 votes, I can tell you every vote really does count. And it's when people lose hope and they lose their voice and they think that they don't matter, that bad things happen. And so I'm hoping that at the end of this evening that you will feel inspired not only to participate by voting, but feel inspired to step up into elected leadership as well, because democracy is not a spectator sport. It takes all of us working together to make the change we want.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sydney, for those questions. We also have some questions from Marina Curry, who's in 12th grade. Would you like to ask?
What is the most important quality for a Supreme Court Justice nominee?
Honesty, not being rapey. Sorry.
I think I'm the only lawyer up here. Judicial temperament, nonpartisan, able to have actually tried a case, maybe.
Yeah, hello.
And judicial temperament, his, you know, God, I can't even believe this is going to happen, and I hope it doesn't, but I believe it will. So I'm going to stop now.
And I just want to echo the judicial temperament. I think that's what I'm hearing from a lot of friends in D.C., that he's without a doubt a smart person. So smarts isn't, we all get it, right? You're already at that stage, you're smart. But then what does it take for you to have that much power? And we saw from the hearings that he was losing it, you know, in addition to some, you know, honesty issues. And so when you think about a body of people that have to make very important decisions and need to be sort of rational and thoughtful, that wasn't displayed in those hearings.
I would also say integrity is one of the most important things, because we know that integrity is doing the right thing even when no one's watching. And this is a lifetime appointment, which means there are going to be times when he's going to be challenged, and all justices are challenged on their personal views, and they're forced to try to remain unbiased and make right decisions that are for the greater good and not just for their personal concerns or personal interests. And so someone with integrity can make sure that they keep themselves in check. And that's really what we need right now.
I just want to also add the belief and the understanding of equity, and that justice is for all, and everyone is entitled to it in a fair act and fair, calm decisions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marina, for those questions. We are going to have several lightning rounds through this process just to lighten the mood and encourage everyone to show their personality. So we're going to ask several short questions. Just answer with one word, go down the line. And yes?
If you could speak another language fluently, what would it be?
Italian.
It's definitely Spanish, but I just have to take a minute to say that I've been committed to trying to get more Spanish in this district since I got here and started a Spanish program at my children's elementary school, and I'm still working on it, I promise.
It's not like
I would say Hebrew. I took it in high school, and I barely remember any of it, so I would love to know it fluently.
I think Italian as well. I've been to Italy a few times, and I love how they live there, so I'd love to be able to spend more time and be able to communicate. Oh, we're lightning round, sorry.
Greek.
Mandarin.
Je parle français, pero yo espero hablar español.
Cheater. Thai.
Awesome. All right, does anyone else have any lightning round questions? Thank you. All right.
Hello. Which famous person would you most like to hang out with, dead or alive?
Which person?
Which famous person that's alive now would I most like to hang out with?
Dead
Is that the
or
question
alive.
for dead?
Or
Okay.
alive.
All right. Start with Kelly.
If I had more time to think about this, I might not say this person, but I just wrote this person's name down because I saw her speak last night, so I'm going to share her with you. Her name is Ijeoma Oluo, and she's an author of a book called So You Want to Talk About Race. And it sounds like I'm trying to be so super, cool and academic, and it's true that I do spend a lot of my time being academic, so it makes sense. But she was at LMU last night and just rocked my world. I mean, she is just so incredible, so inspiring, so moving, so kick-butt smart. And so we all have so much to learn from this woman. We should all spend an evening with her, and I recommend everybody get that book, So You Want to Talk About Race.
Michelle Obama.
Superintendent Lockhart stole mine, so. But I'm still going to say, yes, we'll both go to dinner with Michelle Obama.
Maya Angelou.
You know, I saw Fran Lebowitz on Sunday, and she said the one person that has wisdom that she could think of was Toni Morrison. So I'm torn between Toni Morrison and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, because she seems to have a lot of wisdom, too.
So I'm going to cheat and say two people. Thurgood Marshall and Michelle Indego in cello.
So I have a new hero right now, and her name is Dr. Mary Robinson. She is the first female president of Ireland, and she is a climate justice hero. I just heard her speak at the Climate Action Summit in San Francisco, and she's got this podcast called Mothers of Invention, and here's the tagline: climate change is a man-made problem with a feminist solution. So I'm all over that.
I'm going to cheat and say two as well. Ruth Bader Ginsburg was on the top of the list. And then also Melania Trump, because I just need to know what is she thinking right now. I just need to know.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more lightning round question. Go ahead.
What is your favorite ethnic food?
Thai.
That's hard to. It's lightning round, guys.
Come on.
I'm going to go, I'll say the pad thai at Wakano specifically.
The real question is, what are not my favorite ethnic foods? I'll eat it all.
Well, if I had to choose, it would definitely be sushi. So Japanese.
Mexican food?
Oh, I can't answer that. Ooh, gosh,
Greek.
it's hard.
My husband's French, so I better say French.
Any Chinese dish.
Did everyone answer? Oh, thank you. Alrighty. We have a few more questions from all seniors here at Culver City High School. The first question comes from Lila Rodriguez. Is Lila here?
And then after that, we're going to have Aaron Krantz, so you can get behind Lila.
Are either of them here? No? I can ask the questions. So from Lila, we have a question, how do we bring the integrity and compassion back into politics? And how do we get our senators and congressmen and women to vote with the interests of the people?
I think I'll just throw out kind of a generalized stereotypical response. How to bring more compassion is to elect more women and have them in the office, first of all. We're absolutely a divided country right now. People have referred to it as like a tribalism going on, and so all we do is see the other side, whatever that other side is, as the enemy. And typically people, from my experience, has been that it has been mostly the women that have been able to sort of be the glue, to have that compassion, that empathy, to see both sides sometimes, or at least be able to respectfully disagree when that happens, which is important at this stage for men and women, hopefully.
I want to, oh, sorry.
Okay,
No, just to add on, I think that when our politicians look like the people that they represent, that would be helpful, because therefore you have a true experience and that you can speak to and that you can work for. The other thing is just when we stop thinking that there are some people who are invisible in this world and that we don't have to fight for them.
Yeah, so I just want to piggyback on that because I think there is definitely this imbalance between our country's demographics and elected leadership. I mean, women and people of color are grossly underrepresented in that area. And I also, in schools, we talk about windows and mirrors. And so I think our elected leadership needs to understand that people need to see people that look like them and sound like them, but also they can see themselves in people that don't look like them. And so I think that's also very important.
And I would say to add to all of that, it really starts with how we're bringing up our children, because young people are going to be the next generation of leaders in this country. And there's a big issue in our nation's school that we don't have in Culver City, and it's the lack of arts and humanities. And the humanities are really important. We're moving more towards technology, and we want computers in every classroom, and we want to be STEAM schools, and all of that is great, but we can't lose the humanities because of the humanistic aspect of it. And the humanities teaches us, along with cultural artifacts and art and history, teaches us about other cultures and how to understand each other, and it really teaches us empathy. And there is a huge lack of empathy in our current nation's politics. And so I think starting at the ground level in our schools and encouraging our young people to pursue the arts like we do here in Culver City, pursue the humanities, and really take the time to learn about your neighbor, not just your neighbor that's living next to you on your street, but your neighbor that's living in the next country over, so that you can have a real understanding of their struggles and their pride and their victories, and how you can play a part in lifting them up and supporting them.
Thank you so much.
So I do want to add that while it is important that you have folks in elected office that look like you, it's probably more important that you have people in office who espouse the same values that you support. You know, Clarence Thomas is the only black person on the Supreme Court. He probably, is closer to me than the others because he is black. But he in no way, through his vote and through his history, is like me. So it's also very important that we not get caught up in identity politics, because we will end up supporting people who are Trojan horses, who may look like us, but maybe have an entirely different set of values that they are striving to make real. And so while we are looking to make our offices more feminine, to make them more civil, to make them more empathic, to increase civil discourse, yes. It's also important that we have an understanding that we are voting and supporting and talking to and educating people who share the same values. And part of that, and sometimes the most important thing, is having folks who are willing to listen.
Absolutely.
You cannot be upset if someone is not always going to vote 100% the way you want. That is not real life, right? Like, I do not do anything 100% all the time. But I have to listen with an open heart and an open mind. And so I think those are some of the things that we should be looking at when we are trying to figure out a way to connect with our elected officials.
Yeah. Absolutely, and to add along those lines, this is something I've been thinking about lately. There's a fundamental difference between power and leadership. And some folks get into elected office for the power. Others are leaders, and leadership is absolutely about listening. It's about empowering the people in your community to make sure that they know that they have voice and that we're here to lift it up. The power model, especially that we're seeing in the White House right now, is more about self-service than public service. And so we as voters absolutely need to be able to recognize and call out the power people as opposed to the leadership people. Leadership is listening. Leadership is respect. And it's not something, and it's only something I've come to really learn through being in office and seeing people's styles and how they lead or how they take. And I think it's fascinating, and it's also really scary.
Thank you so much.
I do have to just add one thing that hasn't been mentioned. I know you want to move on because it's something that hasn't been brought up. I agree with everything that's been said already, but we really do have a current problem that's much more exaggerated than it has been in the past, which is that we have big money in politics like it's never been before. That's a real thing where corporations are treated as people. They're not people. We have dark money in politics, much more so than we ever had before, where we can't trace who the donors are, and that really matters because those donors influence votes. And then we have incredible gerrymandering, and the result is disenfranchisement for a lot of black and brown people and for a lot of poor people all over this nation. It definitely affected our current state of affairs in Washington, D.C., and it will continue to do so until we radically overhaul those. So the system is set up to already really not reflect our values, and we need to start making real changes there.
Thank you. And that's why it's important to have events like this to get everyone to be educated. So I encourage you all to participate as much as you possibly can and make sure you're aware of what's happening in this country because it affects all of us. We have another question from Erin Krantz. She's not here, but I can ask it. What exactly are the midterm elections? What are we electing? How important are they? And what role do women play? Do you want to take that one?
Women play a critical role in everything, okay? So you just, not just midterms. So we have elections all the time, I feel like every 3 months there's an election. But
You have.
I know. That is so true. So in Congress, we have elections every 2 years, and then we have elections every 6 years, depending on if you're in the House of Representatives or if you're in the Senate. And then also we elect our president every 4 years. And then in the middle of all of that, you're also electing a lot of local candidates and also state candidates. So the midterm is midway from the last presidential election to the next presidential election. And oftentimes, crazy things happen during the midterm elections. So we saw that a few years ago. Obama was elected, and then we had midterm elections, and then all of these Republicans got elected. And so generally what folks say is that during the midterms, it's an opportunity for the party that's not in power to gain a little bit of power because they tend to win more seats in the midterms because the public is irritated with the president. So we are hoping that that will be true come November. So this November, we will be electing some senators, we will be electing some folks running for Congress, we will also be electing our governor, we will be electing folks that are constitutional officers, which mean they're holding state office and they represent everyone in the state of California, like your Attorney General and the Secretary of State. Then we will be electing some state senators, we will be electing some state assembly folks, and then we will be electing folks running for water board, for governor, for Culver City Unified School District. City Council just had their elections. So midterms are when all of the folks that aren't up, you know, in 2020 or are up. So this is very important.
And in addition to the positions,
They're also propositions.
they're propositions.
Yes.
So, and these propositions, in addition to the people, these propositions really have a direct impact on you locally, whether it's a proposition that's direct to your city or a proposition that is statewide. So I often feel like it's very overwhelming. I think when I moved to California, there was like 1 million propositions on every ballot, I felt like, from Massachusetts. But those are important, and if you could find time to do a little research on some propositions, those really matter for you as well.
So the other thing that's on the ballot are judges. Yeah. Superior Court judges, and I believe this time around, I haven't looked at my ballot, but I understand that some of the Supreme Court of the state of California judges are up for, I think their terms are quite long, but occasionally they will be on the ballot as well. So I think there are a couple of them on the ballot this time. So there are various organizations like the LA County Bar and a couple of other organizations that provide background on judges that let you know whether they're qualified, well qualified, not qualified, that sort of thing. You can't really, they're nonpartisan offices, or at least they're supposed to. I don't know what Mr. Kavanaugh's thinking, but in this state we are trying to keep it a little nonpartisan in that way. So you won't see a party affiliation, you won't see issues necessarily, but you will see recommendations based on their experience and their temperament and other characteristics that you would want in someone who's in a black robe deciding what's going on in your life or something to do that's very important to you.
I also wanted to just put a little bug in everyone's ear that there's also a measure on the ballot in November, Measure K. We say Measure K for kids, and I saw a lot of people who have their stickers on tonight, and that's a parcel tax that's on the ballot right now to support our school system. It's really about programs and making sure that we don't have to make some cuts to those, because we want to make sure that all of our children have the best education here in Culver City. So I highly recommend, since I am not a sitting member of the board, I am an individual, and I'm telling you, please make sure you vote yes on Measure K.
Thank you. We're going to be discussing Measure K a little bit more later on, but right now we have a question from Maya Raval, who's in 12th grade. Is Maya Raval here? Okay, so I'll ask her question. This is speaking as her. So, as the Los Angeles manager of the student-run organization Never Again SoCal, this deals with gun issues, I often find my voice being buried by adults. How should I and my peers, who are also young women in leadership, ensure that our voices are heard and taken seriously?
I didn't catch.
We've seen some. I'm sorry.
I didn't catch the question actually.
Yeah.
Just basically, how do youth take part in society and political issues, but ensure that they're not being undermined due to their age or due to their status in society?
We're in an extraordinary moment of youth leadership. Youth leadership that we haven't seen probably since the 1960s. After the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting, the fact that the high school students stood up and refused to be silenced and called BS on elected officials who refused to act and refused to make our community safe and continue to pay lip service to wanting to be family friendly, but refusing to actually pass laws that would keep us safe. And so I'm extremely impressed by the student leadership that we're seeing in our country today. And I hope that it continues and that you all feel empowered. There's a lot of student leadership happening at Culver High, at Culver Middle, and the fact that here in California, and this is recent, you can actually register to vote at the age of 16, so that as soon as you're eligible to vote, you can do it, right? By voting,
pre-register.
You're pre-registering, yeah. You're pre-registering so that by 18, you're good to go. Because often kids might be off at college. Sometimes you forget. What we're trying to do is take down those barriers and make it easier and easier to participate. When I was a student, when I was in middle school and high school, I was part of the LA Student Coalition. And we were demonstrating against apartheid. And we were demonstrating against racism here in Los Angeles. And I felt like our voices matter. And you know what? Apartheid ended. And I think that as with this continued leadership and inspiration, peer-to-peer, that if you stand up and refuse to be quiet, I think that that is what's going to make our country better.
I want to add that I think it's also important that you recognize that it's a process, and it is not about instant gratification. And we live in a world where, you're hungry and you get on your phone and you select an app and then boom, the food is here. But that is not how democracy works, and it's not how engagement works. So folks want to hear from you if you show up. No one is going to chase you down to say, hey, do you think you want to talk to me? Because I'm an assemblywoman and you look interesting. That's not how it happens. So you have to be willing to engage in a process. Go to your local city council meetings. They can be long and crazy, but you can learn a lot. Get on one of these crazy cow channels and see what the process is happening in Sacramento. Show up at a Culver City School Board meeting, or LA City Council, or neighborhood council, right? So go to some of these events and meetings to see who the people are and what is being discussed and what is not being discussed. And then go and introduce yourself so people know who you are. And you may be looking for the big fish. I'm trying to get to Senator Kamala Harris. Okay, that's probably not going to happen immediately, okay? So get to someone else. And by doing that, you may build allies who then will work with you to help you get to that big fish. So recognize that it's a process. Figure out what your little wins are going to be. And continue to educate yourself on all of these things. And then find ways to keep it fun, because it can get pretty heavy. And when it gets too heavy, people opt out. So always figure out some way to keep it engaging,
And
food work.
Yeah, part of that process, I want to give you a little inside information. Part of this process is that campaigns and elections keep data. And they keep data like who voted, who votes regularly. So often it's like, oh, in this pocket, it was people over 65. And what happens then in the next campaign is they really target information to that population that voted, because they were the ones that were the loudest, or they spoke with their vote. It doesn't mean they ignore the rest of the constituents, but often they're the ones they really want to win because they know they're going to vote. So you then have to get out and vote in large numbers, because then what they're going to hear in their minds with that data that they see is, ooh, We have a big population of 18 to 24 that are voting. We need to get our message to them or do things that matter to them, because that's what they're seeing at the end of the day is just that data.
I would like to add that what's great about local politics is it's really accessible. So on gun safety, there isn't as much that we can do locally, but there are so many issues that affect students' lives every day that the school board and the city council make decisions on. And I've really appreciated when small groups of students have come and just like we sit down in my backyard and they'll interview me about whatever their issue is. Recently, I met with some students who are concerned about some LGBT issues. And what's great about these conversations is then they get to ask what currently is in place at the level of the school district or level of sites, and what can we do to help you better meet the needs of those students? Because even though some issues may be pressing to school board members, we can't do it all in 1 year, we can't do it all in our first term, we have to set priorities. So what we love about when students come to us is that then we can sort of say, yeah, if you come to the school board meeting and you stand up and get loud about that issue, I'm going to be at least one person up on that dais who's supporting you. So again, it's that inside-outside strategy, which you can access much more easily locally than anywhere else. You know their names, you know their numbers, you can email them, you can make appointments, you can have coffee, and I really think it's an effective way for constituents and younger constituents who may not have a vote just yet to get their issues brought to the forefront.
Thank you. We're going to go to another lightning round. We have half an hour left. We'll be ending at 8. So we're just going to do a lightning round and then ask a few more questions. And if you still have further questions, you can, of course, contact any of your local representatives, ask adults or those around you, because it's really important that you get your questions answered. So can we have Miley? She's 12 years old. She has a question.
Of all the Supreme Court justices, living or dead, do you have a favorite and why?
I'm going to go, I'll start Thurgood Marshall because he really broke ground when he took the position on the Supreme Court.
I would say ditto.
I'm sorry?
I said ditto. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Absolutely, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, what she did for women. There was no concept legally of sexual harassment before she brought some cases and brought them. A couple of losses, finally got through the Supreme Court, a couple of losses, a couple of wins. And now there's this concept that there's still a lot of it out there, but at least there's some remedy. And there wasn't one before, and it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, RBG.
Everyone should watch the movie. We have a question from Felden. Is Felden here?
Oh, I can answer real quick before we move on. I think that the superintendent might also have an answer.
Oh, I'm sorry about
That's
that.
okay. Thurgood Marshall.
And I was going to say, and it's not with a ton of information about decisions necessarily, but one of our recent justices, Sotomayor, is very inspiring to me. She's from New York. She's from New York.
Thank you. Did everyone answer the question? Awesome. Is Felden here? Hello. Felden is 11.
I'm actually 13 and my name's
Oh, I'm
Fielding
sorry.
Combs Perez, but the person that was supposed to ask this question didn't show up.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
So
well,
my
hello.
question, so my question is, where do you get the majority of your news from?
I'm obsessed with Democracy Now! I listen to that podcast every day, so I do kind of stick to the NPR sources. My husband constantly has MSNBC and CNN playing in the house, though, and so if it's not sports radio, I do also get some of that action.
I also do NPR and CNN a lot. I also occasionally listen to Fox just to see what they're saying for myself, because you kind of have to know what you're going against. You have to hear it from the source before you can actually fight against the things that you don't like.
So I watch and listen to several because I like to have lots of different perspectives and viewpoints on a topic before I can make a decision. Because if I'm always hearing like-minded people, I don't actually hear the other side. So it's important to have a lot of different sources to pay attention to.
NPR, Washington Post, New York Times, MSNBC, and then also because so much of our reporting is so provincial, meaning centered around just us here in the U.S., BBC, and I get a UN report email weekdays.
Everything's on my phone. I get my information from my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. BuzzFeed. I like Vogue.
Daily UK.
People. Yeah, Daily Mail. New York Times, Financial Times, Economist, BBC, Al Jazeera. Vanity Fair.
So I get the LA Times delivered every day. I listen to NPR every morning when I'm making coffee, and it's pretty cool that it's right up the street from us. And after this election, and I've been getting the New Yorker. I used to read the cartoons when I was a kid, and my mom used to read it, so I am now understanding those cartoons for the most part. But yeah, the New Yorker's been doing some great reporting.
Yeah, New Yorker too.
And after the 2016 election, I realized how important journalism is, and so I started subscribing to a lot of the things that I was reading online. The New York Times, The Guardian, and the Washington Post, and The Atlantic. So I don't always have time to read all of them every day, but I obsessively scroll through Twitter to look at highlighted articles as well.
I'm kind of echo what Tashawn said and also with Sydney said, which is I like a variety of sources. I know that there's some like-minded stuff I'm going to listen to, so because of that, I do listen to, there's two podcasts I really like, which is The Daily, which gives you a 30-minute every morning, which I like. So if you're kind of short on time, you just want to listen to it, download The Daily, and NPR is a great podcast I listen to that you can just kind of go throughout your day. But I do like the BBC channels as well because it's interesting to see what non-U.S. reporters have to say, what their perspective is on what's going on in our country to give you more information. And then, yeah, you definitely need some Daily Mail UK in your life and BuzzFeed every now and again. So.
Thank you.
I think, that's okay. Same thing. Anything I can get, anything I can read that's on my phone or on the computer or on TV. For fun, People Magazine at Ralph's Market while I'm standing in line, just for fun stuff.
And can I just add one more thing, since we have a room full of young people, and I just want to encourage you. It's important to have a connection to media outlets, but there's no replacement for actually interacting with people in your circle, in your community, your small and large community, because all of these outlets are going to be skewed in one way or the other, and you can't just rely on one source to give you the full story. You have to be able to separate yourself from the media entirely at times and just really get to know people that you're surrounding yourself with, and then broaden that and get to know people that you don't normally surround yourself with.
Thank you. We have one more question from Lauren, who's 8. Is Lauren here? All right.
Lauren, are you here?
Oh, there she is.
Okay. And then after that, we have
Just one sec.
Do you like hugs?
Yes, we love
Yes.
I need hugs.
hugs
Yes.
and snuggles
Hugs are
and
great.
nose rubs and all of that stuff.
Hugs are good.
Seems like we have a consensus. Is Tyler Curry here? Tyler Curry had a question. She's in 12th grade. She had a question. Is Measure K fair to senior citizens who purchased their home decades ago and who live on a pension?
Is what is the
Measure K fair to seniors who live on fixed income?
I can tell you that there is an exemption for seniors and the disabled from Measure K. So the answer to that question is yes.
All right, thank you. We just got a question from several students. It's a general consensus that people want to ask, what can Measure K provide our school? More importantly, an aquatics facility, because we've had one in the past, and then that's really important to a lot of the students at CCHS. In addition to that, what other things can Measure K provide? For example, maybe a culinary studio or an auto shop or anything like that, and how will that benefit the students of CCHS and other schools in the community?
One thing, let me just say about the exemption, you have to apply for it. So it's not automatic for people of a certain age. You must go and apply for it, but you only have to apply once. So, Deshawn, I think
Okay.
wanted Leslie to. Leslie?
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it? Okay. So I can speak about the facts around what the parcel tax can cover and cannot cover. And so the parcel tax is not able to cover facilities. So none of that money, if that measure passes, would be able to support new buildings or structures. So those are separate pots of money, and the community will have to have an ongoing conversation there about where we can find either public-private partnership for things like an aquatic center or a new building on Alenda and some of the other requests, and or some other sources of taxpayer money. And what the parcel tax can cover, if it is passed, are programs and people. And so the facts are currently that we are in a deficit right now at the school district, which means that we are spending more money than we're supposed to. We're spending into that pot of money that you're supposed to keep for emergencies only. And that's increasing more and more every year. And so if we do not find ways to increase our revenue, we're going to get into a situation where the state is going to start paying attention, and then it's going to get really ugly. So we're going to need to find sources of revenue. The parcel tax is one way to do that, and it can pay for programs and people, as Ms. McKeithen was saying earlier. So that means that it can keep the excellent programs that we have currently and also continue to make us better, because schools are dynamic environments. We don't want them to stay the same as the years go on, as pedagogies change, as student bodies change, as demographics change. So we need to be able to continue to grow, and that's what would happen if we were able to pass that tax.
In response to that, we have this beautiful new Frost. We also have a science building that's being built. How do we get these things for our students, and how can we advocate for getting things that are important to us in regards to new facilities, new classes, new opportunities, for example, a pool? So how would we go about doing that?
So let me just say two things. It isn't just a question of that we're spending more than we quote unquote should. The state is not fully funding our schools. Mm-hmm. The schools are desperately underfunded. If you look at where California is now, as opposed to, say, the 70s before Prop 13, we have slid from the top 5 down to somewhere around the bottom 5 or 10 in terms of funding per pupil, right, for our students. So it's really hard to do what we want to do with a lot less in a state where the cost of living is as high as it is. It's not like we're in Nebraska, frankly. So there's that. And the state also funds construction bonds and construction money. I'm sitting right next to someone who's nodding. And so we had to pass our own construction bond. We did that in 2014. And basically that most of that money is spent or accounted for as far as what we're going to spend it on. We heard from the community that they wanted the frost fixed, that we fixed the athletic fields. We put in new playgrounds at all the elementary schools. We put in new air conditioning at all the school sites. So there's a lot that happened, a new science building, right? So there's more to be done, but when you run out of money, you can't spend money you don't have, at least not in government. Not in government. Only the federal money can print, only the federal government can print money, right? And keep expanding the deficit. Everybody else, every other governmental entity, state, local, has to stay within the budget of the monies that they are given. So when we run out of construction money, right, then we cannot build anything else at that time.
And, I think that this auditorium was built because Culver City listened to its constituents and said, we need to do something. So it's important that you continue to talk about the things that are important to you and that you continue to show up and remind folks that you're not going away. And sometimes elected officials are trying to wait you out. We're trying to see if you're going to get tired and eventually stop talking about the issues. So go to the gym and eat those Wheaties so that you don't get tired, so that we continue to listen to you. Kathy talked about the state. The state is this big entity, and 120 of us are up there. 80 of us are in the Assembly, and 40 of us are in the Senate. And we go up there 4 days a week to discuss and to pass laws. And those laws generally impact the entire state. So it's one size fits all. As much as I want to go up there and talk about how something is going to impact the 54th, ultimately, the bill that gets passed is going to impact everyone across the state. And so they end up being kind of watered down. And so cities like Culver City say, well, I'm not going to wait for the state to solve my problems. I'm going to put this bond or I'm going to put this parcel tax on the ballot because this is specific to my city. And I'm understanding that the state is not going to be prescriptive to my city alone. Some bills that we pass are focused on one particular area, or one particular part of the state, but oftentimes that's not the case. And so cities get scared. Kelly said, we don't want the state to get involved because when we get involved, we get all up in your business. And you're like, okay, I don't want you to know all of everything that we're doing because then all of a sudden you might start telling my superintendent what to do. We actually have situations where if a unified school district is not doing well, we come in and we become the superintendent. And then the school board becomes voluntary, and nobody wants that because then we're making decisions about what you all want, and we're not really listening to you. We're looking at the books. It's like when you're having a conversation with your folks about you want an allowance, and then your parents are like, I'm going to tell you the allowance that you're going to get, and I'm going to sort of tell you how you're going to use it. You're like, I don't want that. I want to have some control. So that's kind of the dance that cities and the state have as it relates to money. And so this parcel tax is Culver City's way of saying, I'm an adult, and I'm going to make my own decisions about how I run my school district.
And it's important for us all to remember, especially young people who hear a lot about taxes. And whenever you hear adults talk about taxes, it's usually with such a negative tone because nobody really loves taxes. But taxes are really what sustains our communities. But the problem is when taxes are not actually reinvested in the communities the right way. And so Kathy mentioned Prop 13, and a lot of even some of the adults I talk to don't realize that Culver City property taxes don't go directly into our schools. They go up to the state, and then we get what's sent down to us from the state, and we have no control over what that amount is. And so every year, the school district and the superintendent and the board is going line by line over the budget, trying to make sure we can afford every bit of the incredible arts programs and athletic programs and all of your incredible teachers and principals. We have to make sure that we can fund all of that because the state sends us just enough to barely get by. And so when we talk about taxes, taxes are actually a really good thing. It's everyone pitching in to care for the next person and for themselves. And so we just want to make sure that we're mindful that when we talk about taxes, that we understand it's not a bad thing. We just want to be the best stewards over it. And Culver City is actually doing that. We're making sure that every penny counts, and we're putting it towards the best education we can give you.
But it's only a bad thing when your president isn't paying the taxes. But
Yes.
then asking you to pay them.
Absolutely.
Thank you. We're going to move on to another topic of conversation. Cannabis was recently legalized in California, and cannabis and other cigarette products are marketed in a way that is very attractive to youth with bright colors and fun names and flavors. So with the new dispensaries that are opening up in Culver City, will Culver City take action to regulate how these products are marketed to avoid issues of overuse and of use within the youth community?
I'm assuming that one's for me, because that is not a school board decision. So, and I was on the cannabis task force for Culver City, and basically the philosophy behind this is marijuana's been around for thousands of years. For the past, I don't know, 60, 80 years or so, it's been illegal in the U.S. Even being illegal, it didn't go away, right? It never went away. And the idea of not only in the state of California, but in a lot of other states in the U.S., we've realized that just making it illegal hasn't solved anything. When it's illegal, it's underground. It's part of a criminal economy. It's more accessible to youth, not less accessible, because it's all underground. It's all hidden. Legalizing cannabis in the state of California and also in the city of Culver City is about making it regulated, making the product safer themselves so that those adults who do choose to use it don't have some rat poison in what they're ingesting. And it's putting in strong regulations to keep it away from those who shouldn't be using it. If you're underage, you should not be using it unless it's for a medical purpose with a doctor, because we've had medical marijuana has been legal in the state of California, I believe, since 1997. I think we were the first state to legalize it for medical purposes. So we're going through an extensive vetting process in Culver City. There will only be up to three retail establishments in the city of Culver City with a lot of regulations. You can't open a retail establishment within an 800-foot radius of any type of school or daycare or karate school or anything like that. It's interesting, I just met with a group of health advocates who are very concerned about e-cigarettes. So we're not even talking marijuana here, we're just talking tobacco. And the prevalence of e-cigarettes and flavored tobacco. So these health advocates have been talking to me about there's a nationwide movement to address flavored tobacco, because these are they've got flavors like gummy bear and stuff that, is supposed to appeal to younger folks to get them addicted so they will be lifelong users of this product. And so I'm working with them and looking at possibly banning flavored e-cigarettes, and that would include any marijuana products as well, because those things I've heard, and just from the high schoolers in the audience, have you ever seen a kid, maybe in the bathroom, somewhere at school, ever using an e-cigarette at school?
Just blink.
No, seriously, because I'm not on the campus. Every day. That is what I heard from the health advocates. It's not a secret, exactly. And so I think as a city, and this is something we can do on a local level, is make sure that we're not putting products out there that are accessible to youth or attractive to youth, because it is happening.
Well, I was going to say, this is a huge issue at the state level. This year, actually, we passed a bill that would allow veterinarians to talk to, well, not to the animals, but to the owners of the animals about using cannabis, for medical issues that the pets may have, So the state is all about it because it's all about the money. And regulation and monitoring and licensing is all about green and how we can find new ways to get revenue. But, this is a really interesting and important topic that students and young people should be having with, older folks. Mm-hmm. You talk about it. You, as part of the talking, will be educating the old people like me about what all is out there and what folks are doing. And I would say that it's not about kind of snitching on folks, but it's about just sort of sharing with us who do not go to school every day about ask the questions, share some information so that your parents or maybe you feel empowered or curious or angry enough to show up at a meeting and say, hey, I want to raise my hand and talk about what's going on, on the campuses or in the community. I think it's unfair that when I'm walking to the Starbucks, I'm getting, high because 4 people in front of me are smoking. What can you do about it, city council, or what can you do about it, state? This is a great topic to educate folks on. And we all actually should be talking about this because there's all kinds of stuff that we can continue to learn, about marijuana.
So by just the state law, and therefore the law here too, is you cannot smoke in public. It's only supposed to be in private. Obviously, you have to be 21 and older. So if you are bothered by these things, you can call the police, and our local police would be happy to come out and make sure that stops. So that's, enforcement is very important, and having a relationship with our local police department is very important. I'm hoping, I know I've given the non-emergency number to the Culver City Police Department to my kids to make sure they know where to call when it's not necessarily a 911 issue. And I am going to give it to you. So if you want to get out your phones, this is the phone number for the Culver City Police Department Watch Commander. Again, this is for these moments where maybe something doesn't look right. Maybe you're thinking, I probably shouldn't call 911 on this, but it's still weird. It's still uncomfortable. Maybe somebody's smoking something they shouldn't be. Any kind of concern you have. The number for the Culver City Police Department Watch Commander, that's the non-emergency number, is 310-253-6202. Again, 310-253-6202. I gave this number to my kids because they, one of them skateboards back from school every day and the other one takes the bike path on Bionah Creek. And sometimes they see things. And I want them to call the police department when there's any kind of doubt about what's going on around them. And our police department is very responsive, and they'd be happy to hear from you.
And I just want to say, never underestimate your power. There are a lot of initiatives that the school board and the district can take to address this in our schools and the city and the state. But your voice matters, and never underestimate your ability to positively influence your peers. They need to hear it from you, that you see them, and if they're, vaping or if they're smoking, you can let them know in a non-preachy way, and they may accept it from you faster than they'll accept it from the adults in their life when you show that you care about what they're doing and how you want to help keep them safe. So use your voices and talk to your friends and talk to your peers when you see them. Never underestimate the power of a positive influence from your peers.
Can I just add one thing, just as a superintendent of this great district? I do hope that all of the money that's made from the sales also goes into drug prevention and awareness. Yeah. Because, it's out there, but our students also have to understand the ramifications of the choice. Yeah. And I don't know if we're always putting all the attention or the money into that as well. So I'd like to see that happen too.
I just also want to say, and I know it's 8 o'clock, so we got to, but I want to be really clear
So wait, I was
about
just
when
wanted
you
to say
call
one-
the police, please do not profile people based on the color of their skin, whether you perceive them to be LGBT, whether you perceive them to be whatever. Please.
Thank you. I have a question. We're okay to stay, I mean, I know some panelists have to leave, but we have a few more questions from you guys. I mean, it's up to the panelists. Do you guys want to hang out for a few more minutes, or are you, I mean,
So I would just ask that I have an 11-year-old who was 2/3 done with his homework, and I was like, hey, there'll be other kids. I said, I think the DJ is going to be here, who's like famous, but we still have to go home and finish the homework. Yeah. So if we do extend it, I would ask that we really keep it at a hard stop in like 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you for that. We have one more question, just kind of a wrap-up question. But thank you for staying here. We would definitely love to have another forum like this. It's very important. So this last question comes from Shavit Melamed.
There's a student here.
Kieran has a question that I promised him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's a lightning
Go
round
for it.
question.
What books are you reading and why? Exactly. Just
My book club book right now is actually Beloved by Toni Morrison. Oh, and the why, well, I mean, it's Toni Morrison, that's why.
I'm reading a book, I can't remember the author, but it's called Lead Like a Pirate, as well as Start With Why.
And I'm reading, because I have 5 kids, I don't have time to sit down and read a book, but I'm listening to an audiobook called Everybody Always by Bob Goff, and it's about loving everybody always, even the creepy people or the people that are hard to love.
So I'm actually in an online class with some of my colleagues that I work with. So I am actually reading a book called Maker-Centered Education, and we're looking at that in relation to what that looks like in early childhood.
Reading, well, finishing, hopefully, long book, The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein.
I'm reading Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow.
I'm reading a book called State of Resistance by Manuel Pastor, and it's about the state of California and its politics and how California can lead the United States. And Manuel Pastor is actually going to do an event in Culver City on the 11th about equity in our city. So I hope you can go. It's at 6:30. And I forgot what the venue is, but I'll look it up. It's on the 11th.
La Bayona.
At La Bayona. All right, a good reason to go. I'm also listening as to the audiobook of 1984 because I'm feeling like life is looking like that these days. So.
And I am reading the second book in Crazy Rich Asians series because those books are awesome and they're my people. So.
Thank you so much for that question. That was a great question. So our final wrap-up question from Shavit Melamed.
I have 2. You guys gave me 2.
It's the longer one.
Okay.
Thank
Hi,
you.
my name is Shavit. I'm co-president of Soup Club, Students on Unbiased Politics with Thistle. It's a bit wordy, but it's an inspiration to live in a city with so many female leaders. Do you have any advice or general information for young women who are eager to be involved and participate in positive and uplifting programs, whether or not we go into local government? And additionally, as students in high school, did you have women mentors that you looked up to locally or nationally? So yeah. Sorry, it's a little.
Yeah, okay.
I can repeat it.
I'd love to answer that. Getting involved, I hate doing this, but phone banking is right now, you can call for any candidate you want to help that's running in the midterms, whether it be Nevada or in Arizona or here in California, any of the districts that people are trying to flip. A friend of mine who's an amazing attorney started an organization called the Civics Center, which is a new nonprofit organization dedicated to building the foundations of youth civic engagement through education, research, policy, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, basically, she's working to get youth registered to vote because you are underrepresented in the voting population, and we need to change that big time. So it's about getting kids aware, getting them pre-registered, and getting them registered, and she's doing this nationwide. And so as the first openly LGBT person to be elected and re-elected in the city of Culver City, I would say that one of my mentors is Sheila Kuehl. She, when I sat down with her and asked her, should I run, should I do it? She's, yeah, do it. Yeah, just do it. And so, and I kind of live by, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So do something. Do something, whether it's walking, parents write a check, phone bank, help out, get involved with organizations like the Civic Center and other nonprofits that are doing the good work that you're interested in, whether it be environmental, healthcare, or whatever it is, gun safety, for God's sake, we got to do something about that. So yeah, get involved.
And I'm going to keep it a little sort of women-focused because I think women more than men traditionally feel like they have a lot of doubt whether they should run. They see all the sort of potential barriers or things they can't do or other roles they might not be avoiding if they don't do it. And even as, and I'll just speak for myself, even as elected officials as women, we still operate as men because it's still run like men want to run it. So I just want to give a shout out to someone who's not doing that, which is Senator Tammy Duckworth in Illinois. She's the first congresswoman born in Thailand.
Huh? Oh, Duckworth, yes.
Yeah. She's first Asian American woman elected to Congress in Illinois, first disabled woman to be elected in Congress, first senator to give birth while she was in Congress, and that's a big deal. So those are barriers that often, if you're someone thinking about should I run or not, that you shouldn't think about because you can change the face of how elected officials look, and I think we should do that. Right now, we're still in that game, I think, as women. We're kind of playing the man's game, figuring out how we fit our place, and I think we still have ways to kind of change that up. And I'll speak to what Kelly said earlier about the money in it. There's big money still involved in it. So we need to change that as well, and as women, we can do that and figure out how we need to change the process so that it's not just money that can run or sit in those positions as well.
So I will share, there are two organizations that I have been working closely with. One is called Higher Heights, and it's a national organization that works to elect African American women, mostly into Congress, but also for governorships and for some statewide offices. And they are located in Washington, D.C., and it's Higher Heights for America. And then there's also another group that's here based in California, and it's focused on California women, and it's called Fund Her. And they actually give money to female candidates. So those are some great organizations to check out online and to see how you can get involved. And maybe there's an opportunity for like a young person's program, or a subset of those organizations. The other thing is, get involved where you are. You could start a campaign on your block, at your school. Are you trying to get sodas out or bring sodas in? I don't know. Are you trying to bring more art, to the schools? Are you trying to find more green space? Do you want there to be, maybe a pets day on campus one day a month? You can see the things that I care about. But, those are campaigns that you could help get involved in and to spearhead. And that's a way to kind of learn the skill sets that you need to engage folks, to mobilize folks, to get folks to participate. And then you can use that, to parlay into other elections. And find mentors. And mentors are not always going to be the folks that are saying the great things, to you. Sometimes your mentors are going to be telling you, spend more time on your homework. You need to get outside more. You need to exercise, but those are sometimes critical observations that we all need to hear to help us find a way to become the best of who we are.
So thank you for what you're doing, because this is where it starts. This is exactly where it starts. And I was in student government when I was in high school. I was a student activist. Before I could vote, I was registering people to vote. But I never in a million years ever considered being in elected office. Never. And people asked me to run. And I thought they were crazy for having that thought, because it just didn't seem to me like, I'm like, I can't be a council member. And it took a while to realize, like, why am I putting up these barriers that other people don't seem to put up? And if you go to City Hall in Culver City, you enter council chambers, and that's where the school board meets too. And you look to your right. What do you see on the wall?
Bunch of old white guys.
The portraits of the former mayors of Culver City. I grew up in a matriarchy. I was always politically active. I don't consider myself sexist. And yet, it didn't ever occur to me that I could do this. And these, we're going up sometimes not just a system, but we're going up against ourselves. And so I'm really glad that folks asked me to step up and believed that I could before I believed it myself. And I just want to end with this. When I was mayor, I went to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and there was a woman mayor. I think she was maybe in Las Vegas or a pretty big city that she was representing. And she said something I will never forget. It's an expression that I hadn't heard before. She said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I had never heard that before, but I will never, ever forget that. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Democracy, what we're doing here, school board, oh, she's saying wrap it up.
Yeah. People have to get home for the kids. Pick them up. I'm serious. Sean like, very patiently said 5 more minutes. And you're taking all of them. I love you, Megan, but succinctness is not your strength.
All right.
Well,
all right. I want to say really quickly that part of the question was, who are our mentors? My mother was my mentor because she had me at 19 years old. She was a single mother, and she raised me to be a really confident young woman. And just know your strength as girls and young women. Just be you. Be uniquely you. You don't have to change to fit into a man's world. We can actually complement the men that are walking right alongside of us. And we have a lot to bring to the table that is underestimated because we're women and girls, but that makes us really unique in what we have to offer. And one other piece of advice is to uphold each other. Lift up other girls around you. Find younger girls to mentor, because even at your age, trust me, there are girls looking up to you. So set the best example you can, lift up those girls, and stick together, because we have a reputation for always wanting to fight against each other. People think girls and women can't get along. We absolutely can, and we can hold each other up, especially when things get rough.
Thank you.
I just want to I actually have to go get my child at JAG Gym, but the one thing I want to say to you is I actually never thought, just like Megan, thought about elected leadership at all. I'm very old, and
None of us are old.
yeah, okay, I'm very young, but I actually reached out to some of these women here on this panel just to say, I want to get involved. How do I do that? And that can happen at any age. I think all of us are available. I mean, at Ralph's, anywhere that Trader Joe's, but we're here to support each other. And I think the panel of women here, I'm proud to be sitting here with them, and I'm proud that they have lifted me up. So at any point in time, you can reach out to anyone around you to support you. So don't think you don't have a voice. There are always people around you to support you.
Can I just say really quickly, I know, because my
But I gotta go too.
Oh, exactly, okay. So I just want to say to you just a couple of things. First of all, there's going to come things in your life that will try and take you away from your goals. Always keep moving forward. Don't stop. Don't give anyone the right to take your voice away or your power away. You have such incredible potential. There's that. Also, as far as my mentor, I'm going to say my mom. From Portsmouth, Ohio. She's about 5'1 and a half. And the reason why she's my mentor is because she kept me moving on. You can do it. What's the next goal? What's the next thing you're going to achieve? In this room with you, you have moms and grandmoms and nanas and aunties and all these people who are in your social circle that are your mentors. They're your silent mentors. They're not saying, hey, they're not wearing a shirt saying I'm your mentor. They're just someone there supporting you and cheering you on. And then also just finally, and my son will say that he's heard me say this time and time again, know who your contributors are and who your distractors are. Because there's going to be people in your life that are going to try and take you off your path. And there's going to be people in your life who are going to say, yes, you can do it. I'm there supporting you. You know, figure out what your next plan is, and I'm there for you. Once you figure out there's a distractor, stay far away. And keep those contributors close.
Thank you.
you
Need
so
to make
much.
a comment as well, which is that, and I can't not, it's too important. And I'm doing it with a lens of a neuroscientist because that's my field. So it's important biologically speaking as well. So just take that for what it's worth. That my recommendation is to take risks. And it's important because it's important for motivation, but it's also just important behaviorally speaking. Girls in particular show this huge drop in confidence as soon as they hit adolescence. And it's basically middle school through high school, they stop raising their hands as much, they stop feeling like they can get their voice heard, they stop thinking of themselves as successful and capable. Right? And none of that is true. Nothing has changed about their ability, but something has changed about their sense of self. And so one way we can get past this until society is a better place for girls and women, is to encourage girls to take risks, right? Because taking risks means that you see yourself do something risky and then you are resilient because you either come out unscathed, it was successful, or you come out unscathed because you're okay and you didn't die and you made it through that risk. And so whether that's raising your hand in class, you know, making sure that you say something if you feel something in that moment, starting projects, you know what? Those walkouts that happened last year, they were led by women on our campus, Culver City High School. The gun group that you were talking about is led by women, right, and by young girls, and so young women and girls. And so just even if it's really scary, take that risk. Force yourself, hold hands with another girlfriend of yours, and you do it together. And right now, my mentors or inspiration are the women who are not carrying on as usual and are walking out down to the Capitol and saying Kavanaugh, and they are protesting every day to make sure that guy doesn't get into our Supreme Court. They're inspiring me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shavit, for that question. Thank you to everybody for being here today, and to the panelists, Leslie Lockhart, the CCUSD Superintendent, School Board Vice President Kelly Kent, the school board members, Summer McBride, Kathy Paspalis, Ann Allaire, and in the future, Tashawn McKeithen. And thank you to State Assembly Member Sydney Kumlager and Vice Mayor Megan Sally Wells. We really appreciate you being here tonight and answering our questions, and we hope we can do this again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy your night, everyone.
Thank you, Thistle. You're awesome.